So far this season we've ranked Championship strikers, wingers, goalkeepers, centre-backs and attacking midfielders. We are here today to rank Championship defensive midfielders from worst to best, in my opinion. Before we do hop into the ranking though, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors over at OneFootball. As always, their link will be in the top line of the description down below. Over on the OneFootball app, you can go ahead and keep up to date with all the games that are going on in the Championship over midweek. So we've got games going on tonight, which could have some implications going on at the top of the Championship, and we also have games going on Wednesday night as well, which you can also go ahead and track. Or if you wanted to look into some of the players that we are talking about today in a little bit more detail, then OneFootball is a really handy app to have to do that sort of thing. So like I said, OneFootball, link in the description down below. So for ranking Championship defensive midfielders, these are the categories that I have gone for. So a defensive midfielder is either League One standard, okay, good, very good, or Premier League quality. For that top tier Premier League quality, I've decided to go for who I believe to be the best 5 defensive midfielders in the Championship. So let me know in the comments down below who would make your top 5, and then we'll see if our thoughts align or not. But without any further ado, let's hop into this one. So starting out with Massimo Luongo of Sheffield Wednesday, I'm going to throw him into the good category. Not an out-and-out defensive midfielder, can play more box-to-box, and for Sheffield Wednesday so far, has played a little bit further forward, but for QPR did play in that role on several occasions. And for me, Luongo has struggled a little bit with injuries so far this season for Sheffield Wednesday, but when he has featured, I think he's been a fairly consistent performer, adds something going forward, is comfortable on the ball. I always rated him from his time at QPR, and overall, I'd say he's a pretty consistent performer at this level. Jordan Cousins, another former QPR player, I'm going to throw him into the okay category. I've sort of between the bottom 2 categories for Cousins. Cousins is an interesting one because from his time at Charlton, he really seemed to be like a hot prospect, an upcoming young player. He then made his move over to QPR where he was alright, he was a little bit hit and miss for them. He's now made his move over to Stoke, and the same sort of inconsistencies about his game. Sometimes he can be decent, adds a bit of energy into the middle, but you never really know what you're going to get from him. Ivan Sunjic of Birmingham, I'm going to throw into that very good category. Made his move over to Birmingham from Dynamo Zagreb in the summer for a fee of around about £7 million, but the 23-year-old I think has done fairly well for Birmingham so far. I think especially earlier on this season we were really seeing what he was capable of, dictating the play from that deep position, breaking up things really nicely. Also adds a presence for them going forward. You know, that goal he scored against Derby, absolute cracker of a goal, one of the goals of the season so far in my opinion. He has seen a little bit of his form dip off at one point, but I think it's still justifiable to throw him into that category. And then moving into the first Premier League quality player, we are going to have Calvin Phillips. This one isn't going to come as a massive shock really, and Leeds have badly missed Phillips recently after he picked up that red card against QPR. They missed him for their last 3 matches, and they really have had that void in the middle of the park. And for Calvin Phillips, it's not just his defensive attributes which make him as good as he is, but going forward he adds something to their team as well. He's brilliant on the ball, and I think a prime example of why he is Premier League quality was that game that Leeds had against Arsenal in the Cup. Calvin Phillips was absolutely running the show for the first like 60 minutes of that game. Physically, I think he's got everything going for him. He's quick, strong and powerful, but he's also fantastic on the ball, and for that reason, I think he's more than good enough to play in the Premier League. Pelly Pessi at Sheffield Wednesday, I'm going to throw into that League One category. I was between the bottom 2 categories for him. Realistically, I'm sure that he does have his good games from time to time for Sheffield Wednesday, but whenever I've caught a glimpse of him, I'm just not really convinced if I'm being honest. Christian Billig at Derby County, unlucky with injuries this season, but for me, I put him into that very good category. Derby did spend quite a bit of money on bringing him in, but I think that it took him a little bit of time to get going, but especially towards the end of 2019, he was putting in some really consistent performances for Derby. You know, when Preston went to Pride Park, I thought he was absolutely excellent. We literally couldn't get past the guy. He was dominating things in midfield, comfortable on the ball, and for me, very good at this level. Sean Williams, one of the veterans in this list, 33 years old, but still doing the business for Millwall. I've put him into that good category, but on his day, I think you can bump him up to that very good category. I think he fits into that Millwall system really well. Brilliant ball winner in that side. Sam Morsey from Wigan was a bit of a tricky one. I was between that good and okay category. I think because he can be a little bit inconsistent, I'll throw him into that okay category. I think that maybe if he wasn't at Wigan and he was in another side with a bit more around him, then he'd be given that chance to shine a little bit more. Darren Pratley joins Sean Williams in that good category, another veteran coming in on this list, and judging off this season so far, there's no argument to be made that he can be bumped up a category as well. I think that Pratley has surprised a lot of people by just how good he has been for Charlton so far this season. And when we think of Charlton, we think about a lot of the young prospects that they got there at the club, but Pratley really is the glue that holds that side together. Defensive midfielder, 34 years old, but still doing the business in the Championship. I wasn't expecting much from him when Charlton got promoted, I have to be honest, but he's pleasantly surprised me. He He's going to be joined in that tier by Alpha Semedo of Nottingham Forest. Forest do have quite a big squad, so they got quite a few DMs coming up in this video. Not their best DM at the club in my opinion, but still gets the job done for them. Currently on loan there from Benfica. Paddington there I think has really been growing into that Middlesbrough side this season. And I'm going to throw him into that very good category. I think he's been one of their more consistent performers. He's quite a versatile player in the number of positions that he can play. You know, he's been drafted at centre-back so far this season, but I think he's probably most comfortable when he is in that defensive midfield role where he can drive Middlesbrough forward from those deep positions. Really good at breaking up play and also adds a goal threat like a lot of the other midfielders who are going to have in that very good tier. Kane's going to be another one who I'm going to throw into that bottom category, the League One standard. I think that a player who has been fairly unlucky with injuries, but I think that towards the end of his time at Leeds United, I think around about the Paul Heckingbottom era, I just remember him dropping several disaster classes around that time. He's now made his move over to Luton, but I think that in terms of the player that he is and having seen him at Leeds over the last few years when he has made an appearance here and there, I'm not convinced he's up to the standard in the Championship. I think that League One is probably his level now. Trevor Chalobah for Huddersfield Town, I'm going to throw into that good category. I think you can see that the player's got something about him. Even last season when he was relegated with Ipswich while on loan from Chelsea, he was one of the few stand-up players from that Ipswich side, someone who's decent on the ball and can break things up, and going forward offers something as well. I'd say he's decent at this level. I don't think this next one's going to come as much of a surprise really, but Ben Pearson is going to be thrown into that top category. Definitely gets in as one of the best 5 defensive midfielders in the league, and especially over the last month or so I think has been really showing his quality. He's been dominating matches in the Championship and really has been showing his passing range lately. You know, that game we had against Wigan, the pass for Daniel Johnson in the build-up to the Barkusen goal, absolutely exquisite pass from Ben Pearson. He dictates things from a deep position for North End, breaks things up fantastically, and has actually been picking up yet less yellow cards so far this season. Last season, he was booked 14 times and got 3 red cards. So far this season, in 28 appearances, has only been booked 7 times, but that by Ben Pearson's standards isn't too bad. But there's no doubt in my mind that Pearson could play at a high level. I think for me personally, probably is the best sort of ball winner in the Championship. Jonathan Hogg of Huddersfield Town. Now, I've done him into that very good category, I think, because the role of a defensive midfielder and to win the ball back and breaking up play, Jonathan Hogg's got something about him. He's got a bit of grit between his teeth, and I don't think that he's necessarily the best footballer on this list. I actually think that some of the footballers in that category below him are probably better, you know, on the ball and in those situations going forward, but Hogg just adds something else to Huddersfield. Ryan Leonard at Millwall I think is an alright player. I'm going to throw him into that okay category. Obviously things didn't quite work out for him at Sheffield United, but has since made that move over to Millwall. Hasn't played all too much football so far this season, as he did pick up an injury earlier on in the season, but I believe is back in training now. Kevin Stewart at Hull, I'm going to throw into that very good category. Another player who's got unlucky with injuries so far this season, and before he did pick up his injury, I thought was probably Hull's best player so far that season. I think the former Liverpool player was finally starting to show his real worth to that Hull City squad, perfectly fit into the way that Grant McCann wanted to play moving forward, and was that shield in front of that back four. And like I said, a real shame that he got injured because I thought he was doing really well for Hull. Graham Shinney at Derby County, he hasn't actually played all too much football so far this season. I think he's looked decent when he has played, but I'm not really judging my opinion off much seeing him play so far. He's only made 7 starts for Derby so far this season. I think that if I had to compare him and Bielik, I probably would say that Bielik is the better player, but overall I think it holds his own at this level. I think has had quite a few decent performances for Derby actually. Corey Evans at Rovers I think is a decent player for this level. I'm going to throw him into that good category. I think on a similar level with other people who I have thrown into that category. Not the best DM at Blackburn for me. They'll be coming later on in the video. Ryan Ledson for North End, I'm going to throw into that okay category. You know, nothing wrong with Ledson. I've got nothing against him either. It's just that obviously he's playing that role as the understudy to Ben Pearson. I think the best thing for Ledson probably would be to get a loan out somewhere so he can really get that first team football opportunity, but the thing is we can't really allow him to do that because if Pearson gets injured or suspended, we need Ledson to come into the side, but because Pearson's such a consistent performer, Ledson hasn't really got much of a chance since coming in at North End. But I think definitely one for the future and someone who does keep improving, and whenever he does have to fill in for Pearson, I think does an alright job. And Panzu at Luton I'm also going to throw into that category. He can either play as a DM or a little bit further forward, either as that sort of box-to-box player, but for Luton so far this season, obviously they have been quite hit and miss, and I've caught them on, you know, different occasions, either sometime when they've been getting battered or sometimes when they've been looking decent going forward. But Panzu definitely adds something moving forward. I think he's got a decent passing range in there. Sam Bassal for Nottingham Forest. Now I've recently come around to just realising how good this guy is, and looking at Nottingham Forest record with and without Sal, you can't take away from what a player he is. He came back in that game they had against Leeds at the weekend, and what a difference he makes to their midfield. Without Sam Bassal so far this season, Nottingham Forest have a win percentage of 28%, and with Sam Bassal they have a win percentage of 64%. 24%, and I think that just paints the picture. The guy is an absolute unit in there for Forest, but he still gets around the pitch really effectively. Such a strong player, and if you're not willing to go toe-to-toe with him, then the guy can absolutely bully you and run through your midfield. So for me, Sambasau, top 5 defensive midfielders in the league. Harrison Reed at Fulham, someone who I've always quite liked the look of actually since playing for Norwich on loan and Blackburn as well. I think a really effective player at this level, a player with an abundance of energy, gets around the pitch really well. Will Vokes at Cardiff, I'm going to throw into that good category. Last season, I would probably throw him into that very good category for Rotherham. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. 7 goals, 7 assists last season, but for Cardiff, it's not quite happened for him so far. I think recently his performances have had an upward trajectory in terms of how he's been doing. Obviously, that long throw that he's got can cause absolute havoc for the opposition, but like I said, taking him with a little bit of time to settle in at Cardiff. Jay Fulton, I think, is at a similar level at Swansea. He's sort of been in and out of the side so far this season, made 16 starts and 7 appearances off from the bench. I don't think that he's someone who you can question his work rate, gets around the pitch well. Kenny Dougal, I'm thrown into that okay category. Obviously, with him being at Barnsley at the moment, it's tough to, you know, judge a player individually without trying to sort of base that on the team's performance, because of course Barnsley do concede a lot of goals, and Dougal has been sort of in and out of the side so far this season. Christian Norgard at Brentford, I'm going to throw him into that top category. For me, after watching him lately a little bit in more detail, I think he's in the top 5 DMs in the league. He wins like absolutely every 50-50. He's absolutely fantastic to watch at times. He's brilliant on the ball. Obviously, Brentford signed him in the summer over from Fiorentina. It took him a little bit of time to get going, but now he has really adapted to the league. Brentford have the best defensive record in the Championship, and it's understandable to see why with how their midfield operates. Obviously, their defence has been so tight. He's also someone potentially who's quite overlooked in that Brentford squad. You know, we talk about the prowess of their attacking trio, but Norgard and how their midfield's doing at the moment, I think they owe a lot to him, actually. Elliot Redding, I'm going to throw it into that good category. I think he's a decent performer. I think lately has been putting in some decent performances for them, and another player who perhaps goes quite overlooked for them. You know, we speak about the likes of Ajari and Swift and what they are going for, but Pele's the player who looks to organise things defensively, is that strength in the middle for them. And the last player going into that top category is going to be Jake Livermore. Now, I think a lot of times the central defensive midfielder can be the most underrated player in the team that goes unnoticed a lot of times, and for West Brom we talk about their attacking exploits. You know, sat next to him, he's got Romain Soyuz, who we always talk about on the channel for his passing range, but Jake Livermore deserves just as much recognition for how good he has been so far this season. It really has been the second coming of Livermore this season under Slaven Bilic. Adam Nagy of Bristol City, after making his move over there in the summer, I've still not seen all too much of him. You know, he really has been hit by injuries so far this season. Looked really promising at the start of the season, then was sort of derailed a little bit. I still really do think there's a player there, it's just I've not seen all too much of him yet. Marlon Pack of Cardiff City, I'm going to throw him into that good category. I think that when the game suits Marlon Pack, he can be quite an effective player, you know, very strong, and in possession I think he makes Cardiff a better side. Sometimes can be caught out, you know, he can be a little bit clunky sometimes with that lack of pace, but otherwise for this league I think he's a good DM. Lewis Travis of Blackburn Rovers, I'm going to throw him into that very good category. Really have been impressed with Travis whenever I have seen him play. At the weekend was probably one of their standout players. I believe got the man of the match in that game against Fulham. 2 goals, 2 assists for Travis so far this season. I think all the Rovers fans know the player that they have got on their hands there, and going into the future I think have got a really good prospect. Sam Hutchinson at Sheffield Wednesday, I'm going to throw him into that good category. When he's fit and available, I don't understand how someone like Pele Pessi gets in the side over him, to be completely honest. Wednesday fans, let me know what you think of that in the comments down below, but he's getting on a little bit now. You know, he is into his 30s, but I still think that as a ball-winning midfielder, I still think he does the job fairly well for Wednesday. Joe Allen of Stoke City was a really tough one to rank. Obviously, either plays as a DM or a little bit further forward as a central midfielder, can be quite box-to-box, but for Joe Allen, I think that in terms of talent, probably is one of the best players on this list, and with the career that he's had as well, it's just that he doesn't always apply that to his game. Lately, I think he's come right back into form, you know. Since O'Neill's come in, really, I think that Joe Allen has been excellent for Stoke, but under previous managers at Stoke and over the last few years, his performances really had dipped down. But I think over the past few months now, we're finally starting to see that Joe Allen that we all became accustomed to seeing in the Premier League a few years ago once again. And I think it would only be right to finish the video off with the Ginger Pillow, that of course being Ben Watson. Now, if I was making this video from last season, I'd probably throw Ben Watson into the okay category. You know, at Forest last season, he was made a bit of a scapegoat, wasn't particularly great for them whenever I caught him, but this season has completely transformed his game. I think that whenever he's fit in Sambasau in the same midfield, It's a great partnership between them, but so far this season Watson's come up with a string of man of the match performances, is really one of their leaders out there on the pitch. He's scored 3 goals and has got 2 assists for Forest so far this season. And at 34 years old, this season really seems to have been the second coming of Ben Watson. But guys, as you can see on screen now, there are my championship rankings for what I make of central defensive midfielders. Now, there are quite a few that I've had to miss out on this video just for how long it was, and I run out of space on the graphic as well. So if there's anyone that we didn't mention in today's video, put their name in the comments down below and I'll tell you where on this list I would rank them. But apart from that, that will now wrap it up for today's video, guys. So thank you so much for watching. If you did go on to enjoy, make sure you do leave a like. It is always massively appreciated. Make sure you subscribe for a bit of regular championship content. But apart from that, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.